24-10, the final score at the 2022 Outback Bowl, as we were joined alongside by wide receiver Parker Washington, who finished with 7 receptions for 98 yards, including a 14-yard average and a long reception of 42 yards. Parker, what's the biggest thing you take away from this one?
Just the learning experience and the experience here this whole week as a family. It's just been great, and it's been exciting. Definitely a lot we can learn from, but it was just a great opportunity to play again and have a game, play the game that we love.
You mentioned this being a learning experience. What is the biggest thing you learned in this matchup?
Just how we could overcome adversity and still stick together. That's the biggest thing, and it just shows you that the family really means a lot to us, and I feel like that's big for us and moving forward off season and going into next year.
You had a couple key receptions in this matchup, including a couple on third down, that one-handed grab, I believe, in the first half of this game. What was working for you specifically?
Just sticking to what we know and sticking to what we saw on film and just working our technique and what we do every day at practice. And I feel like that's helped me and all the receivers stay successful out there. And I feel like it's great for us moving forward, and I'm excited to keep going.
Did you come off the field impressed with that catch?
I was excited to make the play for our team, and it was exciting. And every time I make catches like that or any type of catch, I'm like, whew. But just moving forward, just got to keep working and just be excited to help the team as much as I can.
SportsCenter top 10 nominee, playing no doubt, Parker Washington. You now being a leader amongst these wide receivers, what was your message to your position group after this one?
We just got to stay positive and just keep looking at the brighter things. We'll have off season. That's time to work and time to improve, and I feel like that will help us, especially the younger guys, as we're a younger group now. It's time for us to step up, and I'm excited for them and excited for everybody else, and especially with our offense coming up next year.
You mentioned the lessons being able to learn in this game, but you also mentioned that you were able to take in a complete bowl week. So you're down here in Tampa, Florida. What's the biggest thing you're going to cherish about this week?
Just every experience, every moment, like spending with all the guys. It was great. You know, you don't get these opportunities every day, and I was excited to have that opportunity, and it was great, and I had so much fun.
Parker, appreciate your time. Safe travels home.
Thanks so much.
That's wide receiver Parker Washington from Texas, as he had 7 receptions for 98 yards, 14-yard average, and a long reception of 42 yards in this contest. Welcome again into the Unrivaled Postgame Show. I'm your host, Mitch Gerber. We'll visit with linebacker Curtis Jacobs here in a few minutes, as well as head coach James Franklin. He's meeting with the media right now at his press conference, and then he'll stop by us to finish out the 2021 season of the Unrivaled Postgame Show. Appreciate everybody that tuned in to the Unrivaled pregame show earlier in the day. Had a lot of former Penn State lettermen come back and stop by. So if you missed that, go check it out, including Chris Godwin, Donovan Smith, and many others, including 3 other tight ends that played in the NFL. 24-10, the final score. Let's go through some of the highlights in this one if we can. Starting in the first half, this was a back-and-forth contest. A first quarter that didn't see a whole lot of scoring, thanks in large part to Jair Brown right here. 9:26 left in the first half. A big-time pick right there to be able to help Penn State on the defensive side in the red zone. And then Parker Washington, we just spoke with him, coming up with some big-time catches like this in this contest. That one-handed grab was critical at that point in the game. Here we are in the second quarter with 11 minutes left on the clock. Keandre Lambert-Smith wide open from Sean Clifford, 42-yard reception, 10:53 left in the second quarter. Coach Stubblefield on the sideline said, "Every play matters, you guys. We're executing how we were supposed to execute," after that touchdown reception. Penn State would tack on 3 more right before the end of the half. 10-7 the score as you see it right here. 25 seconds left. Jair Brown with a big-time pick right there to close out the first half for Penn State. Arkansas would come out in the second half in this game, though, and ultimately put up points to be able to walk away with a 24-10 final score in this one, as they were effective on the ground and ultimately pushed Penn State in the second half to come up with the 2022 Outback Bowl victory. Once again, we'll visit with head coach James Franklin coming up here momentarily, as well as linebacker Curtis Jacobs, who led the way for Penn State defensively with 10 total tackles, 8 solo stops, 1 sack, and 1 TFL. Jair Brown, who you saw in those highlights, had 2 interceptions on the day, a couple of big-time picks for him as we look at some of the defensive highlights in this matchup right here. Penn State doing a very nice job defensively in the first half. Jesse Lucchetta was a freak, making him some big-time plays in this one. Penn State pushed Arkansas in this one in that first half. Here we are in the second quarter picking up a sack. We're able to get pressure up front, specifically on the defensive front, as we'll once again visit with Curtis Jacobs, who led Penn State with 10 total tackles. Tar Burton was effective in this game. Here we are in the second quarter again on the defensive side of the thing, of the football. Smith-Vilbert coming up with a sack right there. Good to see some of the youth for Penn State here in the near future play in this game today. 2022 Outback Bowl coming to a conclusion here as Penn State falls 24-10. We'll visit with Curtis Jacobs, linebacker for Penn State, coming up here in a few moments. We'll also visit with head coach James Franklin coming up here in a few moments. Until then, we're going to step aside, and we'll be back here momentarily. All right, we're joined now by Curtis Jacobs, who finished with 10 total tackles in today's contest, 8 of those solo stops, 1 sack, and 1 TFL. Curtis, we just visited with Parker Washington, and he talks about this being a learning experience. What do you take away from this one?
I think the same thing. There's a lot of young guys that got a chance to step in and see what playing at a D1 level is like that haven't before, and they gained that experience. And I would think that's really big for them because that was big for me coming into this season. I didn't really have that experience, and it took me a whole season to get comfortable. So we're just going to have to keep pushing, keep getting better, and keep executing.
You are now one of the veteran linebackers for this Penn State football team moving forward. What was your message to your position group after this one?
Just keep your head up. We're going to hit winter workouts hard. We're going to hit spring ball hard, and we're going to hit camp hard like we always do. So now I get to hit that as like a leader in the group. So that's a little exciting opportunity for me, and I'm excited to take that and move it.
For you personally, you finished with 10 total tackles, led Penn State's defense in this contest. What was working effectively for you?
My teammates were in their gaps, and I just happened to be able to make those. I just happened to be able to make those plays. So shout out to the defense. It wasn't really sure what we were going to get coming into today, but I'm incredibly proud of how those guys battled today.
In the first half, you had Arkansas's number, to be quite frank, on the defensive side of the football. Jair Brown came up with 2 big-time interceptions. What makes him such a ball hawk in that secondary?
He just knows the game. He studies the game. He knows where you're going to throw, knows where he needs to be, and he's just an incredible athlete, and you saw how he came out and made those plays. That was actually a really tough play. I thought I was going to have to go get it out. But, yeah, he's just a really smart football player, and you could tell he studies the game.
Absolutely. Jair Brown coming up with 2 big-time interceptions. Parker Washington also talking about learning from the experience of a complete bowl week. You were able to be in Tampa, Florida for a week. You got to do some fun things, got to practice. What was the most beneficial thing you took away?
Well, I'm just incredibly proud of how the guys knew when to work and knew when to have fun. We knew when to lock in, and we knew when to get out and let loose a little bit. And I'm pretty proud of those guys because that takes a lot of discipline. A lot of guys come down here and they just treat it as a vacation, and we didn't do that. We kind of had our fun, but we also did what we needed to do.
Curtis, appreciate your time. Safe travels back to State College.
Appreciate it.
That's Curtis Jacobs, linebacker for Penn State University. Just visited with Parker Washington here momentarily, or a little bit earlier as well. Curtis Jacobs, the linebacker, and Parker Washington, wide receiver, finished with 7 receptions for 98 yards. 14-yard average for Parker Washington with a long of 42 yards as we now welcome in head coach James Franklin. Coach, what was your biggest takeaway from this one?
Obviously, our guys, I thought they played their tails off. I thought in their first half, we did some things offensively to give us a chance to get some momentum and score some points. Defensively, I thought we battled and did an effective job in stopping the run. But obviously in the second half, they made a major commitment to running the quarterback, both off the perimeter zone read as well as the internal zone read. and that had a huge impact in the game. And then the other thing is obviously 3 red zone trips on offense and missing a field goal and a turnover.
What was your message to the program afterwards?
That I love them. I'm super proud. I'm super proud of the guys in that locker room, the players, and the coaches. Been a lot of adversity the last 2 years with everything that's going on the field as well as off the field. And I'm proud of them. I love them. And obviously we got some work to do. I'm going to sit down with the leadership as soon as we get back to start the next semester. But I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the coaching staff. Obviously losing a guy like Brent Pry is significant. I thought those guys stepped up and did a good job. So overall, I'm proud of them. I love them.
Jair Brown finished with 2 interceptions, 2 key interceptions in the first half. What makes him such a ball hawk?
Yeah, he's got a good feel. He's got really good instincts. He also plays really hard. He loves football, which I think is a major factor for this as well. Obviously, he's decided to come back next year to graduate. He's going to be a big-time leader for us. We're going to need him. Excuse me, I apologize. He also didn't practice all week long. I don't know if that's really necessarily what I want as a coach, because he didn't practice very well, and then didn't practice all week, didn't get cleared until late Friday afternoon, and ends up with 2 interceptions and plays really well. So I know his argument to me is he's not going to have to practice all next year, which, as you can imagine, that won't go over well.
Well, speaking of a leader, Parker Washington was a leader on the offensive side of the football today, coming up with some key receptions. What makes him so effective on that offensive side? He's
got great ball skills. He's got ability to make people miss with quickness. He's got really good intelligence and football instincts. Obviously, losing Jahan, it was going to be important for him and Keandre to step up, and I thought they both did today. We're gonna need to do that moving forward.
Parker mentioned that this can be a huge learning opportunity. So from that aspect of things, how can a bowl game like this, despite the outcome, be a learning experience for the program?
Well, I think it just shows you, the fine line between winning and losing. And for 8 years, we found ways to win close games, and we weren't able to do that this year. I'm proud of the guys overall. Obviously, we got some work to do. There's some things that we got to sit down and discuss and make some decisions on. But overall, I'm proud of the guys, and guys like Parker, for next year coming back are going to be really important from a leadership standpoint.
Coach, appreciate your time. Safe travels home.
Thank you. You too.
24-10, the final score here inside Raymond James Stadium as we wrap up this edition of the Unrivaled Postgame Show. We just visited with head coach James Franklin, also caught up with wide receiver Parker Washington a few moments ago as well, and then linebacker Curtis Jacobs, all saying good things about this being a learning opportunity. Parker Washington continues to be one of those young wide receivers that is now forced to go into a leadership role, despite the loss of a guy like Jahan Dotson. Parker Washington, arguably Penn State's future big-time wide receiver out there for Penn State. Keandre Lambert-Smith also with a big-time reception in this contest. 42 yards to be specific, coming up with a touchdown on a broken coverage. Let's take a look at those highlights one more time as we wrap up this edition of the Unrivaled Postgame Show. First half right here, Arkansas driving in the red zone against Penn State, and Jair Brown, who Coach Franklin just talked about being a leader and an effective playmaker, loves the game of football. He came up with his first interception of the day right there, and then Parker Washington. I mean, this is an absolutely ridiculous grab. SportsCenter Top 10 nominee, one-handed grab towards the right side, comes up with a first down right there. Here we are in the second quarter, just under 11 minutes remaining, and there's the Keandre Lambert-Smith broken coverage play. 42-yard reception with 10:53 left on the clock in the second quarter. His position coach, Taylor Stubblefield, said, "This is what we came here to do. This is how we make plays. This is how every play needs to be. Every play matters. We're here to execute, and we're doing that right now." That was after that touchdown over on the bench. Penn State would make it 10-7 on a field goal, 38 yards from Jake Pinniger, and then Jair Brown coming up with that other pick late in the first half. That sealed off a potential drive there from Arkansas to tie it up late in the second quarter. They didn't. Penn State had a 10-7 lead, and then Arkansas would come out and run the ball, as Coach Franklin just talked about. Penn State's defense not able to effectively stop some of those runs, which were key down the stretch. 24-10, the final score here from inside Raymond James Stadium. Appreciate all of you tuning into this edition of the Unrivaled Postgame Show, not only today, but the entire season. Hope you enjoyed the coverage from top to bottom, and we'll see you in 2022. Happy New Year.